So as we know, today was the trade deadline in the NBA, and what I'm going to be doing in today's video is going through the biggest trades that we saw today on trade deadline day, and really just going through them and analyzing them, what they mean for both teams involved, what they mean for the players involved, and what it means for the NBA moving forward. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Before we get started, if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos, and let's get started. So the first trade, which was really the biggest one of the day so far as I'm recording this, was one between the Bulls and the Orlando Magic, and the Bulls are receiving Nicola Vucevic, who this season, as we know, made the All-Star team and is really breaking out as an overall offensive player. So they receive Vucevic along with Al-Farouq Aminu, and the Magic are going to be getting back Otto Porter Jr., Wendell Carter Jr., 2021 and 2023 first round picks. So this is a pretty big deal, and especially for the Orlando Magic, really starting their rebuild and starting with two pretty good players probably for their core moving forward, and Porter and Carter. And I really think that if they get the right development and the right minutes in Orlando, they could turn into very good players along with two very valuable first round picks. Now Vucevic going to the Bulls here is pretty good for the Bulls as well if they think that they can contend right now, because right now they're doing pretty well and they're pairing up a very good offensive duo in Zach Levine and Nicola Vucevic, and this is really going to make them probably a playoff team. The only thing is their defense is really not good right now. They don't have a lot of great defenders on the team, and if they want to take that next step and become a championship contender either now or a few years in the future, they're going to have to improve their defense tremendously. But overall, this is a pretty good trade, especially for them just because they have two lethal scorers now, Zach Levine and Nicola Vucevic. I can see guys like Kobe White and Levine getting into a lot of pick and pop action with Vucevic, which is obviously the go-to play that was with the Orlando Magic. Now Vucevic can bring some of that energy over to the Chicago Bulls, and like I mentioned, they just have to improve their defense. For the Magic, they've, as I mentioned, started their rebuild and got a few young pieces for their future. The next trade was a big one between the Toronto Raptors and the Portland Trailblazers, and if you guys watch my channel, you know that I'm a Raptors fan, and I'm actually quite happy with this deal as a fan of them. Norman Powell is going to the Trailblazers, and we've heard him in lots of trade rumors over the last few days since he's a pending free agent and is playing the best basketball of his career right now, scoring the ball at incredibly high levels, and it sucks to see him go as a Raptors fan. He's done lots of great things for the organization and is definitely heating up right now, so it's sad to see him go, but the fact that the Raptors were able to get Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood back for a player that is an expiring deal at the end of this season is pretty impressive. And when we look at a guy like Gary Trent Jr., he's a 22-year-old shooting guard who's really breaking out this season, averaging 15 points per game, can do a lot of things on the offensive end of the floor, including shoot the three ball, which the Raptors definitely need right now. He can provide very good defense. We even saw last year in the playoffs him do a pretty good job of guarding LeBron James in that first round series against the Lakers for the Trailblazers, and overall he's a very good young player who's going to do great things for this Raptors team, and I'm really glad that they got him in this deal. They also got Rodney Hood, who's going to be a very good role player for them right now and in the future moving forward for the Raptors. He can provide great defense as well, and this is something that the Raptors have always done for the last 2 or 3 years, is never really have any under average defenders on their team. And I look at guys like Gary Trent and Rodney Hood, and I think they'll fit great into the Raptors defensive system. Rodney Hood can do a few things on the offensive end of the floor as well. He's very inconsistent, but at times he can shoot the ball very well and provide very good defense. And when I look at both of these guys, it's the defense that really makes them welcomed into this Raptors team, and I think the Raptors did a great job here of getting a return for Norman Powell. And when it comes to the Trailblazers here, they have to do something to try to contend right now, because if they get all their role players back, they legitimately have a good chance to do something in the Western Conference playoffs. Led by Damian Lillard, who's probably playing like an MVP candidate this season, and they have CJ McCollum, but if they want to contend now, they're going to have to do something big, and getting Norman Powell, who's putting up around 25 points per game recently, is great for them. He can also provide a few things on the defensive end of the floor. This team's defense is not great, and I'm interested to see if they'll do anything to try to improve their defense even this season in the last few minutes here of the trade deadline, but they haven't done done anything yet, they've got Norman Powell, who's really going to help them offensively and boost their chances of doing something big come playoff time. The next big trade was another one from the Orlando Magic here, again trying to rebuild and start their future, and this one involves Aaron Gordon going to the Denver Nuggets, and the other way is Gary Harris going to the Magic along with RJ Hampton. And to be honest, I was very disappointed to see that Bol was not in this trade. If you guys watch my channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of him. I basically make a video about him every month. I love his game, but he's not getting any opportunities with the Nuggets right now, and I thought that him being traded to the Magic and a deal for Aaron Gordon would be great for him and his development and give him an opportunity to get some playing time, but it didn't happen. Instead, it's just Gary Harris and RJ Hampton, and when we look at this from the Nuggets perspective, they're trying to contend for a championship this season, and they can do that with the core that they have right now. And getting Aaron Gordon is probably going to help them on the offensive end a little bit. They did lose some defense with Gary Harris and a good young player in Hampton, and I think the Magic are doing a really good job of starting their rebuild, especially with a guy like Harris who can provide some defense and some shooting every now and then. He can be a good role player, and then also taking a risk on a guy like Hampton, who's kind of a boom or bust type of player and one day could turn into something really good. So when we look at this for both teams, it's kind of a win-win situation. I'm just disappointed that a guy like Bol wasn't involved in this trade. I think this could have been really good for the Orlando Magic to really boost their rebuild as well, but instead they're ending up with Hampton and a decent role player in Gary Harris. As I mentioned, for the Nuggets, this is good for them just to try to boost their chances of winning a championship this season and give some more help to Nicola and Jamal Murray on the offensive end of the floor. The next trade just came in, and it's that Rajon Rondo is going to be going to the Los Angeles Clippers, and there's been rumors about this for a while. Rondo definitely is aging, but he's still a very good playmaker and can provide some leadership for this Clippers team as they try to push to win a championship this year with Kawhi and Paul George, so that could definitely be good for the Clippers. Now going the other way to the Atlanta Hawks is Lou Williams, who is also aging very much and will probably come off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks. He could maybe provide them with a little bit of a spark, but as I mentioned, he's aging. He's not as good as he used to be. He's not his same sixth man of the year level player, and also going to the Hawks is 2 future second round picks. And overall, this deal is 2 older players that are basically just flip-flopping positions, and Rajon Rondo is trying to provide some leadership here for the Los Angeles Clippers, and Lou Williams is basically going to try to do the same thing with the Atlanta Hawks, and it's just going to be interesting to see how these veteran players fit in with their new teams, if they're able to adapt, and what type of leadership and spark they're able to provide for their new teams. The fifth and last trade I'll be discussing today is the one that sent Evan Fournier to the Boston Celtics, and in exchange, the Orlando Magic are getting 2 future second round picks. And there you have the Orlando Magic, again, working towards their rebuild. And really, when we look at it overall and who the best winner is from this trade deadline, it's probably the Magic, and they've given up Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier, but it's worth it for the rebuild that they're starting, and they've got a huge haul today, lots of picks, along with Gary Harris, a good role player, RJ Hampton, a very good piece for their future, Otto Porter Jr., Wendell Carter Jr. in that Vucevic trade, and as I mentioned, tons of picks. So they've done a great job of starting their rebuild today, and when we look at this trade specifically with Evan Fournier going to the Boston Celtics, he can provide them with some shooting and a little bit of depth, because the Celtics' main weakness right now is definitely their depth, and they need another role player like this who can come off the bench, provide them with some decent defense, decent scoring, and shoot the ball pretty well. So I think this is a good overall trade, a very minor one at the end here, but I think this is good for the Celtics and of course the Magic to just continue rebuilding for their future. So as I'm recording this, it is exactly 3 p.m. Eastern time, signaling the end of the trade deadline for the NBA this season. Now there are sometimes some trades that are announced or finalized after the 3 p.m. deadline, and if they are announced, I will put them in a pinned comment down below in the comments, but for now, those are the 5 biggest trades that we have today. Some notable trades that didn't happen or haven't happened so far and could be announced after the deadline. I look at Kyle Lowry, and he was heavily rumored to maybe be going to the 76ers in a trade, but they pulled the plug on that. They're out on Kyle Lowry officially, according to Woj, and the 2 teams that are in contention now for Kyle are the Heat and the Lakers. Lakers, but it is the deadline right now, and Kyle Lowry might be staying with my Toronto Raptors, and they might try to re-sign him this offseason. So we'll see what happens with that. There could, as I mentioned, be a trade still announced. Another notable one here is Lonzo Ball. There have been lots of trade rumors about him. I was also hoping that that could be a potential deal with Bol, him going to the Denver Nuggets, forming a pretty great and dynamic offense over there, and Bol teaming up with Zion with the New Orleans Pelicans, which would be a very good fit as well. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now, but it could still, and if Lonzo isn't traded today, then he might be part of the New Orleans Pelicans' future moving forward if he re-signs this offseason. So Kyle Lowry and Lonzo Ball have still yet to be traded, and they might re-sign with their teams if they're not. As for today's video, that's all I've got for you guys today. Those are the 5 biggest trades that have happened so far, and some potential trades like Kyle Lowry and Lonzo Ball that could happen after the 3 p.m. deadline. Thank you all for watching this video. As I mentioned, be sure to subscribe if you're new so you don't miss out on any new videos. Comment down below your thoughts on the trades today and who you think is the biggest winner of the trade deadline, and I'll see you all next video.